Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's media call with ESPN and ACC Network college football analysts Roddy Jones and Eric McLean. A few things just before we get started. This Zoom will be recorded. I believe it's recording right now, and I'll send it around this afternoon following this event. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Use the raise hand function. I'll call on you, and then just please state your name and outlet before asking your question. So, all right, let's get started. Don't all raise your hands at once. But we'll take our first question from Connor O'Neill. Go ahead, Connor.
Yeah, hi, Eric and Roddy. Connor O'Neill with Deacons Illustrated. I guess for either one of you, the broad question here, what is the key to this game for either team? How do you see it playing out?
I'll go first. So I think for Wake, we'll start with them. I think the key is going to be handling Pitt's defensive front. I think they obviously struggled against Clemson's defensive front. NC State was able to mess them up a little bit. Carolina did a nice job of getting their hands up, batting some balls down, and really staying on schedule, because when teams have forced them into their traditional drop back game, it hasn't gone especially well for them. So I think the biggest thing is going to be handling Pitt up front, and then for Pitt on the opposite side, I think the ability to run the football when they need to. I don't think they have to rush for 300 yards, although teams have had success doing that against Wake. But when they need to call on the run, like they did in the Clemson game in the fourth quarter, where they basically salted away the whole fourth quarter, I think their ability to do that's going to be big. So those would be the biggest two for me.
Yeah, Roddy, I think that's exactly right for really both teams. When you look at, Wake Forest, what did they learn from the Clemson game? Because Pitt is going to try to do something very similar. Now, it's going to look a little different. I think their defensive line is, not as physically imposing as Clemson's, but schematically, it's just as difficult. And when they can, send 4 or 5 guys, 6 guys, that's where you're going to see that, really that line go backwards. And then guys miss target, you get hit right in the face, your quarterback gets blasted. And then the thing for Pitt with that is if you do not hit home, if you do not get there, it's man-to-man behind you. And there's a couple of really stud wide receivers in Roberson and A.T. Perry that will more than welcome one-on-one coverage any day of the week. Same for Taylor Marin as well. So, just that chess match when both of those, coaches are at their best, right, with Narduzzi on defense and Clausen on offense. And I think for Pitt is exactly right, Roddy. Can they run the football? Maybe not even when they need to, just it will. Slow the game down. I think if this turns into a track meet, it might favor Wake Forest. If Pitt can make them frustrated and make them feel like we have to capitalize when we have the football, we might not get it back for who knows how long. I think that can be really interesting to see frustration levels with play calling, with players on the field, and then the health of Abanikanda. Of course, held out last week and probably could have went, but just how healthy is he, and is he full go tomorrow night, I think will be key for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, to follow up, how much of this game just comes down to Pitt willing to run the ball, given Wake's, the 2 games they lost, they gave up 330 on the ground. The 2 other games, they give up even more than that, the Syracuse and Army games.
Yeah. It will be fascinating to see, Connor, just because, Pitt clearly better at running the ball this year than last year. Last year could not get anything going, no matter how hard they wanted to, or maybe sometimes didn't want to. They couldn't run the ball. This year, different story. They have really a stable of backs that I think they feel very good about. Running downhill, play calling has been much better, and offensive line playing better as well. So, Connor, does Pitt make that decision to kind of go against the grain of what they want to do, which is throw the ball 40 times a game and maybe run it more, just because of what the opposition is showing you? But I've got to think that Kenny Pickett's going to want to throw that football.
Yeah, and Mark Whipple wants the ball in Kenny Pickett's hands. So for maybe it's not the amount that they do it, Connor. Maybe it's the stat to look at more is yards per carry once you factor out sacks. How many yards are they getting when they turn around and hand the ball to Israel Abanikanda, to Vincent Davis, to Rodney Hammond, who's become a really good player. Because look, if I'm in a championship game and I'm Mark Whipple, the ball's in Kenny Pickett's hands. It doesn't matter what the defense is doing.
Correct.
But when we decide to run it, how effective can you be?
Next up is Mitchell Northam from Pittsburgh Sports Now. Mitchell, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I had an offensive line question for Eric. Pitt, in the games where they've kind of struggled a little bit, it's been those games where Kenny Pickett has gotten touched a whole lot. In that loss to Miami, he got sacked 4 times. And then in that stretch, between Duke and UNC and Virginia, there's 10 sacks, between those 3 games. I think he got sacked a couple of times against Western Michigan too. Pitt kind of cleaned it up last week against Syracuse. They only allowed 1 sack. I guess how important is it for this offensive line to kind of keep him clean in this game? And as Wake Forest, do their defenders kind of have the ability to maybe get to Kenny?
Yeah, I think last week was a really good kind of temperature check. A Syracuse team that, man, all year getting after the quarterback and some really good players on that defense. And even, again, schematically, what Cuse wants to do, trying to confuse guys with that 3-3-5 look and just bringing pressure from a lot of different areas. So I think that was kind of a good temperature check to see where this offensive line will be going into this one. I don't think Wake, when you think of Wake this year, I don't think anybody's thinking, man, they have werewolves all over. Boogie is in Buffalo. He's not here. So, there's not, I don't think, that key guy that you just zoom in on and say, we've got to know where he is every single play. So Pitt's offensive line has played fantastic this year. We'll have to do that again, this coming Saturday night. If your quarterback's getting hit and it's not because he's scrambling, then it's a bad deal. But Kenny has shown time and time again how athletic he is, his escapability. We're actually doing a tape tomorrow night just on how he's almost a magician. I mean, there were a couple of times against Miami, he's dead in the water, and somehow he breaks loose, gets out, hits a couple of shots downfield. So it is a skill set that he is very comfortable with, but certainly anytime your quarterback can drop back 1, 2, 3 and throw, it's a good night for your O-line.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, EMAC, I agree. Like I think Mark Whipple puts a lot on Kenny too, to account for an unblocked rusher. Kind of like LSU did with Joe Burrow a few years ago. They sort of counted on Burrow to make it right instead of adjusting protection to account for a guy they think may come. They just put that on Kenny. And so that does lend itself to more sacks at times if they're able to take away the hunter, if he doesn't have a clean read. He's scrambled a couple of times. So I think ultimately when Wake is able to get back there, taking Kenny down and then making him count. I mean, Rondell Bothroyd's had a really nice second half of the year. They can get some strip sacks, make those sacks really count. Can they come in high leverage situations? Can you get the ball on the ground in those situations? That's what they're going to have to do.
Thanks, fellas.
Next up, Jerry DiPaolo. Jerry?
Thanks for your time today, Amy and Roddy and Eric. I'm interested in you guys' opinions on Pat Narduzzi's risk-reward defense. You touched on it a minute ago, Eric, where the cornerbacks are sort of put on one-on-one islands. How do you think it's effective, and how do you think it could maybe hurt Pitt, against Wake Forest?
Yeah, I mean, I love it just because it's chaos at times. And, there really have been times where it pays off. You see them, one of the best in the country at getting after the quarterback, getting sacks. But there is that risk. And there is a thing where, when you're going against these monsters, these basketball players like A.T. Perry and even a burner like Roberson, that they can get behind you. And when there's no one left, there's no safety over the top. You like the odds of that wide receiver catching the pass. So it's certainly something, Jerry, that it has its pluses and minuses, but fortunately enough for Pitt, these last couple of years, there's been a lot more positives. And I think it's so difficult to prepare for. I mean, I guarantee Wake spent a period minimum on third down and what Pitt is going to do in the formations and defensive pressures, blitzes, coverages. And it takes away from practice because you don't see it other than when you play these guys, and you just have to practice it. It's not quite to the extent of playing a triple option team offensively, but it is just that extra factor that now Wake has to be cognizant of, because if it's third down and long, they're pinning their ears back and they are coming after you.
I think, Jerry, I agree with EMAC. Like, it is different. And the thing it does, it puts pressure on the offense because they take pride in stopping the run, which they do with they're typically outstanding tacklers. They run to the football and they dedicate numbers to stopping the run. So it forces you to make plays down the field. And if you can get one-on-one with their safeties and you have time to throw it, there's plays to be made. I mean, the teams that have made plays, look at, Duke hit plays early on in that game. Georgia Tech hit plays early on in that game. Miami hit plays. Like, there are plays to be had against Pitt's safeties in particular. But the thing is, you have to hit them quick because they're one of the best adjusting defenses in the conference. Their splits in terms of what they give up in the first quarter versus the rest of the game bears that out. And they're a defense that just continually puts pressure on you with their slants, their stunts, their activity in the front seven. They're going to dedicate numbers to stopping the run. They're going to send people at the quarterback. They're going to try and confuse you on third downs. And while the coverage may be pretty simple behind it, you know what the coverages are going to be. Like, I can tell you what the coverages are going to be tomorrow. The stunts and picking up those in the front seven, those are going to be, that's what makes it tough. And so there is a little bit of risk, but it's worked for years for Randy Bates and Pat Narduzzi.
Thanks, guys. And real quick, who gets your Heisman votes?
If I told you, they'd take it away from me.
Are you a voter?
No, I'm not. Are you guys voters?
I'm not. EMAC?
I am.
You go.
You are?
So Kenny, let's go for 360 and it'll help me out.
You can't say. All right.
They're due on Monday, right? Is that right, Eric? They're due Monday?
Right. I hope that people are waiting until that day because a lot of people, that email went out Wednesday with that you could fill it out, and I hope people just wait and just see all the games.
You're waiting till after the game tomorrow night?
Of course, all games until all games are played.
We'll catch up to you then after that.
That's right.
I would agree. If I was a voter, I would agree. I would wait until after the games on Saturday.
All right, Les Johns, you're up next.
Yeah, Les Johns here with Demon Deacon Digest and the 24/7 Sports Network. Eric, I know you had a pretty lengthy, in-depth podcast with Wake Forest quarterback Sam Hartman earlier this season. I guess I'd just like to know what were your key takeaways from that conversation with Sam? What did you learn about him that you didn't know going in? And then a question for both you and Roddy is this potentially the best college football quarterback battle we're going to see over the next month, probably?
I'll answer that first. There are going to be some really fun bowl games, and I cannot wait to see them. Just with all the brands, all these quarterbacks specifically in the ACC, man, that are just so good. We might get a couple of ACC, SEC, ACC Big Ten matchups that are really fun to watch. But going back to the podcast, man, it was so fun to talk with Sam just at length and to be able to, have 20, 35 minutes with him and, dive into all aspects of his game, of this season, his thoughts coming in and where they are now. And really the biggest takeaway that I had, and I think there was a big article just written about this, was his mental health and the fact that, years before, if something bad happens, if something bad happens to him or the team or something that happens on the field, it would kill him. And he would just have bad play after bad play after bad play. And he said, listen, I had been training my body for my whole life, and I would rarely train my mind. And as a quarterback, and really, anything in life, man, we have to protect our mental. And, I think that helped him take such a better next step. And you can see it clear as day this year that if something goes wrong, he makes a poor play, amnesia, on to the next, keep going. He's not dwelling on it. He's not thinking about it. And I think that's why we've seen him have unbelievable success this year, whether it's from, the therapy that he goes to, the things that he does outside of that to mentally prepare himself, and just the mindset going in saying, there's 11 of us on this field. It's not just one guy. There's 11 guys that have to go to work each and every day, 22 when you add the defense. And it was just so impressive to see that and how that has led to him being so much more confident. I mean, we were sitting right here in Charlotte media day and he says 9 or 10 wins or it's a failed season. I'm like, I get it, but wow. Let's not tell everybody that, but that's how he felt. And that's how all his teammates felt. We just talked to Luke Masterson this week as well. And he said, I was right there with him when he said it. So it was super impressive, man. Coach Clausen and the staff have done an unbelievable job with these guys and, making them feel like anytime they walk into a stadium, they've got a shot. And I think that's how it should be. This program needs to keep continuing and building on consistency because that's going to be the next step. Okay, you got here. What does next year look like? How do you keep building upon this?
It was a cool episode that you guys did, Mac. It was awesome. Les, to answer the quarterback question, the matchup. I mean, yeah, it's going to be one of the best. I'm trying to think of the matchups that you could get that would be better. potentially in the college football playoff, you could have a Desmond Ridder, Bryce Young, like that would be incredible. But in terms of what you got going on this weekend, this is it, man. Like, you want to see great quarterback play, this is where you come. And I think the cool thing about the league this year is that you've had it multiple times. I got to do Kenny Pickett and Sam Howell. You've had Kenny and Brennan Armstrong and all the combinations and iterations that you got in the Coastal. But Sam Hartman's been fantastic. Malik Cunningham was great. Tyler Van Dyke was great. Devin Leary was great. Like, you just had so many quarterback battles that could have had this type billing. Not all of them have a Kenny Pickett, who's, Heisman Trophy finalist most likely, and probably a top 10, top 15 pick. But some really high level play the entire season's been really cool.
Candace Cooper, you're up next.
Hi, thanks, Amy. Eric and Roddy, thanks for taking the time. Curious, all this coaching changes that we've seen this past week, a lot of madness, but I would love to hear you guys talk about Coach Narduzzi and Coach Clausen and just what they mean to this conference and how important it is to have these kind of coaches here in order to really kind of up the level of play that we're trying to see as a whole, with Commissioner Phillips talking about how we want football to be the main thing. So can you just talk a little bit about them and their importance here?
Yeah, great question, Candace. I think that sustainability is very important to this league. I don't think that this is a stepping stone league. I don't think people take jobs in this conference to get other ones. I think that this can certainly be a final destination type of league here with 14 great institutions, 14 great schools, and certainly 2 that are in this game of the best, with Coach Carlson being coach of the year, Coach Narduzzi right under him, I believe, finishing in second, and 2 guys that love it. I mean, I had the privilege to sit down with both of them many a times this year and just hear their thought process, and really 2 very different guys and how they approach things and who they are. But I think it's very, very important. And I think they're important to this league. I think they know that. Obviously, the commitment Wake Forest just made to Coach Clausen, extending him and having him, for many years to come. And then hopefully, Narduzzi, whether he gets this done or maybe a big bowl game win, similar thing we see in Pittsburgh. So I think that's important. I think that they are clearly 2 of the best in the conference and honestly in the country when you look at how they win. It is almost baffling to me, and others might not feel this way, but I surely do, Candace, that when jobs come open, that Coach Clausen's name is not mentioned. He is one of the best football coaches in the entire country. Now, I don't want him to leave. I'm happy that he's here, but it just seems so silly to me when people want this name. We want a big name that's sexy and all this. Well, let's get a coach and let's win some games so you're not firing some big name in 3 years and doing it all over again. So it's interesting to see, but 2 of the best, no question.
Candace, the thing that comes to mind when I think of those 2 guys, obviously their longevity, but the biggest thing is fit. Like, the success in the coaching profession comes down to fit. Do you fit with the school? Does the school have alignment? Can you align people with the vision? And I don't know if there's 2 coaches in the league or any coaches in the league that fit better at their institution. Certainly there are coaches that fit as well, but Pat Narduzzi is a Western PA guy. Like, it's the area of the country that he's from, being from Youngstown, Ohio. Like, it's how he's grown up. He's grown up with that in his veins, and his program embodies that. So they find guys that want to play that style of Pittsburgh football. He talks about Pittsburgh tough all the time. He goes to New Jersey and gets a Kenny Pickett. They've got a ton of Western PA guys that just love that place. And Wake Forest needs a fit as well, someone who embraces the fact that it is a developmental program and has a very clear vision of what that is. And I had Dave Clausen his first year at Wake Forest, and he told us, he's like, look, we're not good right now. We have guys that we are redshirting right now that could help us win. But our philosophy is we will redshirt every offensive lineman and as many defensive linemen as we can that come into this program. And it's still true. Those guys redshirt. They sit for 2 years, then they play as juniors or seniors or sophomores if they're talented enough. They recruit great skill. They have competitive depth at that position because it's easier to find those guys than it is the big offensive linemen. And so that fit, that alignment, that vision really stands out. So I think the biggest thing is like those hires nailed the fit at their institutions.
Next up, Larry Sorensen. Larry, go ahead.
Thank you. Larry Sorensen, Wake Forest Sports Properties from Learfield. Sustainability is the word, but in a different context. with Wake Forest to make that next step has to do it again and again and again. Something of a surprise this year, right? To do that, Sam Hartman coming back is a big key to that. What does Sam Hartman have to gain and how by coming back to Wake Forest next year? He's kind of across the board in the draft prospectus lists as to where he might go. What would be the big impetus for him to come back, the things that he could prove and accomplish?
Yeah, I think just doing it again, that this wasn't lightning in a bottle, that this wasn't just something that, was random, that it was matter of fact. Now, Kenny probably would like to do the same thing, but he's out of years. He's at like 12 years in school, so he's got to go. But I think anytime that you can build upon and say, this was not an accident, this is who I am. I can throw the football. I can do these things. I'm a leader. I think makes a lot of sense for Sam to come back. And the fact that you're more than likely going to have A.T. Perry back that has been so skillful and so promising for you. And if you can get a couple other skill guys to make that same decision, I mean, look out. I mean, this offense clearly one of the best in the country at what they do. So I think it's big for scouts. It's big for NFL guys to see, okay, was this a one-off thing or is this who Sam Hartman is?
For me, like with Sam, you can see, like, you can take a lot from what Kenny Pickett just did, the decision that he made to come back, because like Emac mentioned, A.T. Perry's going to have the opportunity to come back. Donovan Green is going to be back next year. Like, you're going to have a lot of weapons around you. And who knows what the draft is going to bring for Sam. He's going to get dinged for a lot of stuff, arm strength, size, athleticism, like all the things that these guys get picked apart about. That he is he's very good at in college, but in the pros, it's a different level. So the other stuff is the reason that Sam Hartman has to gain. He can rewrite the record books in a way that Kenny Pickett did. He will be on the Heisman Trophy radar coming into next season if he decides to come back. So it's that sort of legendary status. Like, and the money's great in the NFL. The ability to go there is fantastic. But, when you're my age, or when you're, 50 years old, or when you're 70 years old and you bring your family back to Wake Forest, when you're being honored and your name's up in the rafters because you did it in multiple years and you've got every passing record in the record book, like that stuff is going to mean more than being a 5th round pick or whatever he is, even if he's a 1st round pick. Like that stuff's going to mean more than foregoing his senior season to be a draft pick and go and make some money. Because if they don't happen this year, it can happen next year. The benefit is you got the talent coming back and you've got that ability to really mean something and cement yourself in the legacy of your school.
Thanks for the time, guys.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
pleasure.
I don't see any more hands raised. So if you have a question, please, you can shout it out. If
Guys, thank you
not,
so much. It's going to be a fun game. Can't wait. Hope all of you are going. It's going to be fireworks. At least we hope, right? When we think that something's going to happen, but it's a great matchup, super even. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I've been selling it as the best matchup that you've had in the championship game since Justin Fuente's first year, when it was a one-score game, that Virginia Tech team that was so explosive on offense. Since then, it's kind of been lopsided, and Emac, I'm sorry, Clemson's not in it, but it's made for a really compelling matchup this year. So I think it's great for the league. I think it has a chance to be really exciting.
Thank you all. Appreciate you guys.
if there's nothing else, we will conclude, and I will send the the recording link around later this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time today.
See you later.